Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Welcome to Parenting in the 21st Century. I'm Zina Shevchik. Today we have with us Susan Pollet from the Office of the New York State Court Administration to talk with us about their Parent Education and Awareness Program for parents who are separating or divorcing. Thank you very much for coming today, Susan, all the way from Westchester County.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great opportunity.
So I'd like you to tell us about your program.
Well, I'm very passionate and excited about this program, and I'll give you a little bit about the background of it. In 2001, Chief Judge Judith Kaye, in her State of the Judiciary address, said, I really want to do something for parents who are going through a separation or divorce that have children under the age of 18, because we all know what happens when there's conflict and the children really suffer, and she felt that the court system might be able to do something to help. So in her wisdom, she appointed a 19-member advisory board, which was multidisciplinary with people throughout the state. We had appellate division justices on it, we had psychologists, social workers, parent educators, domestic violence advocates. It was really a good cross-section of the community with great minds, really high-level people. And it was chaired by an extraordinary woman, Supreme Court Justice Evelyn Frazee, who hails from Rochester. And she worked together with this group for a 2-year period, very intensively. And they came up with a really comprehensive report in 2003, which is on our website, and can be read by everybody. And they worked out what the curriculum should be for best practices in this area, how our office should be administered, what the requirements are for certifying providers to provide this form of education. It was quite detailed in terms of what they thought would be best for the program, and the Chief Judge adopted the recommendations, and the launch was in 2005. And we've really made some terrific progress since that time. We now have certified programs in all 62 counties in the state, and multiple programs in some counties, like here in Albany you have 2 programs that are certified. It's a rather rigorous certification process, because one of the main ideas that the advisory board came up with is they wanted there to be basically a uniform curriculum throughout the state and uniform quality, because there were a lot of parent education programs out there, and in fact there still are parent education programs out there, but they're not all certified, they're not all equal in quality. And what we do in our office, for instance, is we get in the certification application from the entity that applies, and we look at their curriculum. We make sure that it hits all of the high points of the curriculum that we've approved. We have to see every piece of paper they're going to hand out. We want to know their security plan, what their site is going to be like. We make sure that it's American with Disabilities Act compliant. And before anyone is allowed to present in the program, I have to review their resume. They have to sign an ethics statement that they will not solicit, or they will not solicit or accept clients from the parents that are in the class. And they view our training DVDs, and they have to sign a certificate of completion of training before they even get in front of the parents.
Can you tell us how the connection is made between the courts and the parents to attend these classes?
Yes. The administrative judge, the chief administrative judge, signed an order that said that judges could order parents to attend our certified parent education program, or they could refer them. And the only exception to that is if there's an an outstanding family offense pending, temporary order of protection or permanent order of protection, or a history of domestic violence. In those instances, the judges will not order. But parents, if they want to attend, can self-refer. So anybody listening to this program, if you have children under the age of 18, even if you're not separated or going through a divorce, but you're thinking about it, or you have some information you really want to gain, you can call one of our certified providers, and the list is on our website, and you can go to the program.
My understanding then is that a judge would order or refer when perhaps a child custody case came before them, or I don't know how divorce works in this state, so perhaps you could go into that a little bit, where children are involved. Do parents actually have to go to court for child custody decisions to be made, or can that all be done outside the courtroom?
Well, if they come to the court, they would come to the court in two ways. They would either go to the family court, or they would go to the Supreme Court matrimonial part. If they're undergoing a divorce, they would go to the Supreme Court matrimonial part. And as part of their divorce, they may get into custody and visitation issues. Family court has what they call concurrent jurisdiction over custody issues. And so even after a divorce, a parent could go into family court and seek to perhaps change their visitation schedule, or if different things occur, if there's a change of circumstances, they may go in and petition in family court. Some people are able to work out agreements on their own, but in the event that they cannot, then sometimes they have to go to court in order to resolve these things. So those are the judges that would be ordering or referring them.
Okay.
Court attorney referees and support magistrates can also see a family and feel that they may need to go and refer them, or they could ask the family court judge to issue an order that would require them to go.
Okay. Would you talk a little bit about the programs that are available in Albany County? I know that at the end of this program we will put the web address of your office and the program, and we will also list at least one of the programs in Albany County as well. Could you just talk about the two that I guess are available?
Sure. We have really terrific programs in this county. Madison Psychological Associates is one program. They offer a 1 5-hour session, and it's taught by a psychologist, Dr. Jeff Whitman. He's written a book. He speaks frequently all over, and is very well known in the field and respected. I've heard him speak before judges. He does a lot of trainings, and I did the site review. I mentioned that as part of the certification process, after the application, we want to make sure the site is okay and that they're teaching what they said they would. So we go out and we actually do sit through the entire class.
You do, or
yes,
members of your staff?
I do, and also our administrator does, and who's been trained by me to do so. And we have a site review evaluation form, which is going a little off of what you asked, but
That's
just
right.
so you know, that hits key points, and we make sure that if it needs tweaking, that we follow up with the provider and make sure that they are providing all the information that's required. And I did do the site review at Madison Psychological Associates. I know it's a wonderful program. They also had an attorney presenter who did a great job with the legal portion. So there's a psychological, parent and child well-being portion and a legal portion. Then you also have in this county Cornell Cooperative Extension, and they do a class cycle rotation with Rensselaer and Saratoga counties, and their classes are held approximately 4 times per year in this location. So parents have different options. In addition, any parent can go to any one of our certified providers. So if you live in a different county, than the one in which you work and you want to go to a provider there, you're not just limited to the 2 programs here in Albany County, you can go to any of the programs. And so we try to give as much coverage throughout the state as we can, which is why Cornell Cooperative Extension is working with Rensselaer and Saratoga and working out some kind of class cycle. And we're also happy to have Dr. Whitman with Madison Psychological Associates to fill in. So they call their curriculum something different, and they are slightly different, but the key is that they hit all of the high points that were identified in the 2003 report. So we do give the programs some free rein for creativity and other things, but we do know what they're doing and how they're being creative and what they're handing out, so that it has to be approved by us.
When I looked on the cooperative extension website, and they have quite a bit of information on that site about the program, about the classes. The cost looked very reasonable to me for the, I think it was 2 3-hour classes or 2 4-hour classes. I can't remember what it was, but the cost to me seemed very reasonable. It was listed as $50 for the whole thing, and it also said that there were scholarships available for people who felt they could not afford that, which I thought was a really good feature.
What everybody should know is that, pursuant to the guidelines, if anybody's income falls at or below 240% of the poverty guidelines, they must attend for free. And then many programs, although they have a flat fee that they mention in their websites, etc., they have a sliding scale based on income. So we don't want to deny anyone the opportunity to get this kind of education.
The other thing I noticed on that website was that they made clear that the parents did not attend the same class, that indeed they were I think required to attend different classes. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is something that I do like to mention. The advisory board felt that it was important that parents attend separately, partially for safety reasons. You know, if perchance there is domestic violence going on this way, you know, the parents would be separate. And I think also there's a notion now, and I see it in doing the site reviews, that people really want to talk in these classes, and our presenters really do bring out, they don't let the parents talk about their personal situations too much, but they like to be able to say things, and if the other parent is there, they won't feel as free to speak, and it will be an inhibitor. So what happens really that I've seen in the classes is that the parents really bond, and by the end of the class, some of them are exchanging email addresses, and they are talking to each other about potential next steps, other places they could go.
For more parenting information? Or
correct.
More, yeah.
And one of the things that we require the programs to have along this vein is they have a resource list that they hand out to all the parents, which is comprehensive for their area and includes all the possible things that they may need next steps. For instance, if they need mental health services, if they need substance abuse services, domestic violence services, if they need legal services, and on and on. This way, they may never get this information any other way than through this resource list. They may not take the time to find it out. You as a librarian, I know, would be immediately on a website figuring it out. Most people don't have the time or initiative. It's not part of their job. They're not going to do it. So this gives it to them in a very neat package, and also the programs have brochures of these different agencies and service providers on a back table. So if anyone, you know, is embarrassed, doesn't want to really ask about it, they can just take a brochure, learn about it later, go on their own. They can have it be as confidential as possible. And I also want to mention that everything that occurs in the class is confidential, so nobody needs to be concerned about that. We have strict confidentiality.
Can you just mention what I assume is one of the key points, key parts of the parenting classes, which is referral to additional help, additional assistance after the classes are over. Can you talk a little bit more about what are the highlights or essential components in these classes and how they're delivered?
Yes. We take a multimodal approach. It's not just a talking head standing there and spewing out information. We really require them to either use a PowerPoint presentation or an easel or something visual. They do role plays and other kinds of scenarios and exercises with the parents. Some of them have breakout groups which are supervised, and there are discussions. They encourage a lot of discussion and participation, so it makes it much more interesting, and the parents really can't get enough. What we've learned from the parents in our post-class surveys is, most of them say, we wish we had had this class earlier, we wish we had known about this earlier. We get fantastic feedback about it. So just to tell you how it's usually set up, the legal portion is only about an hour, and we sandwich that in the middle generally because it tends to make people's blood pressure go up when they start talking about the legal aspect. But
legal aspects being child custody and things that
yes,
kind of thing?
The high points of that are discussing the different forms of child custody, supervised visitation, what they might see in a court case, who is a law guardian, what is an in-camera proceeding, the importance of the timely payment of child support, what are the different forms of dispute resolution, mediation, arbitration, collaborative law, everything leading up to litigation, cost benefits of these different forms, basic information that people really need to know when they're going to be going through something like this. The importance of following a court order. It's nothing highly complicated. It's not legal advice. It's not supposed to substitute for an attorney, but it gives a good structure for the terms that they're going to be hearing going forward and the processes in which they are going to be engaged, and maybe will have them thinking about which process makes sense for their particular situation. So those are really the basics of the legal portion.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And then the parent-child well-being portion, which is usually taught by a psychologist or a social worker, it gets into how to listen and talk with your children, how to maintain a stable home environment, how to have your own healthy parental functioning and well-being. And they give an example of being on a plane and you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you help your child and put the oxygen mask on the child. Those kind of concepts. How to have the most supportive environment for your children. And then how to deal better with the other parent. How to deal with conflict, different forms of parenting, cooperative parenting, where you can really get along and make decisions together and have a business-like relationship. And then there's a continuum all the way to parallel parenting, where there's domestic violence or there's very high conflict, and it's better for there just to be a court order setting forth the visitation schedule, for instance. The parents parent in a parallel way in their own households. They don't discuss what they're doing. If they communicate, it may just be by email or some other means like that, or not communicating at all, depending. It could be anywhere on the spectrum. And there is a possibility, and we don't advocate one form of parenting over another because everybody's situation is different. So we don't want, for instance, a domestic violence victim to feel that because they're not cooperatively parenting, that they're not doing the right thing. In fact, they shouldn't be. They should be parallel parenting. And that, the studies have shown that as long as the children aren't put in the middle of the conflict, it's not so much the parenting style vis-a-vis the parents with each other, as it is they're not being in conflict in front of the children. So it's interesting, and people may move to different points of the continuum at different times. They could start out very low conflict, and then they get to the teenage years, let's say, and certain decisions have to be made, and all of a sudden they can't work things out, and they haven't been able to work it out through mediation or whatever else, or they're in high conflict and they can't mediate because of the power imbalance, so they really need to be in court, and then you find them in court. So that's why I think everybody, the second they file a family court petition or a Supreme Court matrimonial action, it'd be a good idea for them to go to this program, or even go. What we would really like is, as someone is handed a license before they even have children, that they have to go to this class if they're thinking about it.
I was thinking about that this morning when I was coming here, driving here, was that before they let the baby go home with the child, but to require them to at least see some videos on how to parent, or DVDs on on parenting. But you're right; it should be done before the child is conceived, in the best of all possible worlds, because it's. I think a lot of us are taught or assume that parenting is something that's just a natural instinct, and certainly my experience with parenting is that it changes every day in what is expected of you or required of you, and it's not always most times it's not instinctual. I don't think in terms of what the correct or best thing to do is. So I think parenting classes are a wonderful opportunity for anyone who's thinking of becoming a parent. So I think these programs are fantastic because they are open to anyone, and they're available in all counties. You say that even for people who are not affiliated or aren't in contact with the judicial system. Am
Exactly.
I correct?
In fact, we encourage people to go before they even, become part of the judicial system in dealing with these things, because it may help. What studies have found in many states is that where they have these programs, that people tend to settle their cases more easily or not even have to go to court, or that they tend to go back to court less often. And I just worked on a law review article with a law student, which is going to come out in the Family Court Review in April, and it surveys all of the different states throughout the country that have mandatory parent education, and it's in different forms. In some states, the second you file a petition, you are mandated to go to their parent education program that is connected with their court system. And we also talk about some of the efficacy studies that have been done, and there's a lot of positive information out there that parent education really helps make the family situation more livable. And one of the wonderful things about our program, which is why I think we get such positive reviews, is that, I could dryly tell you, as I have, what the course consists of, but the real essence of it for the people that are there is that they realize that they have a sense of hope and empowerment. And it can be a very depressing time for people and a very upsetting time. And when they see that they don't necessarily have to be messing their children up because they are going through a separation or divorce, that there are better ways to handle things so that there are better outcomes for children, I think it makes people feel that they have more control over the situation. But what we also teach in the class is that you cannot control what the other parent is going to do. You can only control what you're going to do. So that even if only one half of you has gotten the message of the program and is doing what the program is speaking about, that's still going to have a better outcome for the children. And what we do teach are some really great techniques for how to talk to the other parent in an appropriate way. And some of the people listening may have heard of I messages, where you're not speaking in an accusatory way and getting somebody defensive and getting their back up right away, but you're approaching things by telling them how you're feeling about it more, and what action could be taken that might be a little bit better. So rather than saying to the other parent, you're always late, you're a deadbeat, you're late again, and that's how you greet the person at the door when they come late again with the child. I'm sure a lot of people out there are laughing because they've been through this.
Me too.
And it may not work in all circumstances, and it may take years to work, but if you say, when you're late, it causes Susie to, she's pacing and she's very upset. I have these other plans. It just causes us so much upheaval. if you could just call in advance, call from the road, and then talk about different ways that maybe it could be a little bit improved, find out why they're late a little bit, explore it, discuss it rationally, but don't do it in front of the child. Send the child so far away the child can't even hear it. And everybody thinks that because they're on the phone, their children don't hear things, or because their children are in the other room, that they don't hear it. They hear everything. So you have to really pick your time to discuss things, and it shouldn't be when you're exchanging the child for visitation. These are the types of things we talk about. Maybe if you're getting along enough to go have a private meeting somewhere, do that. If it has to be over at the phone, do it when your child's not around. These real basic tips, but I have to tell you that it does not matter how much education somebody has, what their socioeconomic status is. None of it matters when it comes to separation and divorce. All of that is a blur. We have people in our classes that have no money, that cannot afford anything, that are in family court. We have people that are on the higher end of the spectrum, usually in the Supreme Court matrimonial cases. They're very often all in a room together, and guess what? Their situations are identical. It does not matter. And their ability to deal with the situation is not dependent on what you would think, that if somebody has more learning in school, that they're going to be better at doing this. It's just not true. And as you wisely pointed out, we don't know about this. We don't know how to parent. It is not instinctual. And all these classes can really help. And I've been to so many. You would think I was the perfect parent now.
Yes.
I've been to, I can't even tell you how many evenings and Saturdays I've attended these different site reviews. And I learn something new every time I go. And I try it out with my family. They're like my guinea pigs, and sometimes it works well and sometimes it doesn't.
Do they know when you're doing it?
Oh, well, my daughter, who's in high school, when I start speaking to her, certainly she goes, oh, those are those iMessages from your class. But anyway, something, it does help. And it can help even when you're talking with your coworkers or different people and you're trying to get things done.
Communication, effective communication.
Exactly. So.
Yeah. One of the things that I personally, not in my family, but friends often ask me in regard to talking to their kids about separation or conflict or divorce is, what do you tell the kids, and how do you tell them? And so maybe if you could just talk for a little bit about that, if you can.
Well, I'm a lawyer and not a psychologist, but I can tell you what I've learned in the class is that what parents tend to do is that they either don't tell the children anything, and there are many people who they don't know how to deal with it, and so one of the parents just moves out of the house, nobody talks to the children about it, and the children just have no idea why this is happening and very often blame themselves. Mm-hmm. And so the course teaches that that's not the best way to do it. In addition, some parents give all kinds of information. Like in The Squid and the Whale, for those of you who saw that movie, where they sit the children down on the couch with them, well, that's a good start. But, then saying everything. You don't need to say that, your one partner cheated on you or, whatever it was. They don't need to know all of that. They need to know that that you're going to be living apart, that you love them, that you'll always love them, and those are some of the main messages. And so, just giving enough information so that they feel stable and know what's going on, but they don't have to know every intimate detail.
Not enough to be put in the middle of everything.
Exactly.
Right?
So it's a fine line, and it's not easy.
And it's something to learn and role play if you need to in these classes and in certain situations. So.
Exactly. And it may be that, if you're concerned enough, you might want to consult a social worker or a psychologist and discuss your particular situation and say, and discuss how you might approach it with these particular types of children with whatever their issues may be. Or the course may be sufficient to give you enough information for you to feel confident in how to do it. So we can't really say. It's a beginning. It's like a little window onto this world of how to deal with things more effectively, but it certainly doesn't give every answer that every family is going to need for every issue.
In the last couple of minutes here, I would, because you mentioned that you were an attorney and not a psychologist, I thought I'd like to give you the opportunity to tell us a little bit about you and your background and experience.
Thank you. Well, one of the reasons why I care so much about this program is because I've spent so much of my career dealing with family court issues. I was a law guardian representing children in family court. I was assigned counsel representing the parents in family court. I prosecuted child abuse and neglect cases. I was a court attorney to a family court judge for 7 years, and I was the executive director of PACE Women's Justice Center that's connected to the law school that dealt with domestic violence victims and their issues. So I've been in and around this, and now in this capacity, I'm so happy to be working on this program as one of the programs that I work on for the Office of Court Administration, because parents really need this, and I saw the results of what happened when they didn't have a class like this. So I was in the trenches first, and now to be in this situation where I know this can make a difference and help people is just such a wonderful place for me to be personally in my career, and also to feel that we can make a difference with this program. And so I'm just so happy to come here to Albany to speak to you, to go anywhere in the state to speak to parents and say, you know, please utilize this program. I don't think that enough people know about it. We've done a lot to advertise it. You know, we have business cards in the courthouses and posters and brochures, and we're, you know, trying to do public service announcements and get articles and newsletters and do a lot of things. If anybody has any ideas for me that's listening about how I can get the word out even better about the program, please definitely email our website address, which I know is going to be appearing here.
Yes.
And, you know, contact me at any time through, you know, our toll-free number or our website number, and, you know, we'd be happy to help. But I think just it's word of mouth, and letting people know that, you know, this is really a great way to go. And if I really want to boost, as I said, I read these post-class surveys. But I think that the Office of Court Administration and the Chief Judge and all the people that help with this program should be commended for taking on something like this. You know, people always think of the court system as we discussed earlier, as being a place that, you know, you want to avoid at all costs, and it only complicates matters and doesn't help people. Well, in certain circumstances that may be true of litigation in some instances, and sometimes litigation is necessary. But here you have something that's being promoted, sponsored, organized by, and supervised by the court system to really help people. And we do have a number of programs like that I think people should understand, that many lawyers like myself spend our time in these public service types of jobs and arenas because we really do want to make a difference. And so I often feel like lawyers get a bad rap and a bad name, and particularly in the family law arena, and that I don't think the public realizes how many things lawyers do to try to make things better for families and children.
Well, hopefully this program will change some people's minds, perhaps, about the court system, and will also contact some of the websites or email or phone numbers we provide at the end of this program to get the help they think they may need for parenting classes. Thank you so much, Susan Pollet from the New York State Office of Court Administration, for coming today to share your program with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Parenting in the 21st Century.